And when you look to previous years, they had been raised, even in like 2010, 2012, like the issues on public debt were raised. But then, and also when you look at the world, like we were saying that you have 235% public debt of the world GDP. And even Kenya is not at that level. Like we are still at around 60-something% of our GDP. But then, why is it that in Kenya it's still, we have a lot of challenges compared to even those other countries which have even more debt than Kenya? But also we have to think around to see the population that we have in Kenya, which is pretty a young population. And also when you try to compare with poverty. So we are saying that about 20 million Kenyans live below poverty line, around 39.8%. It also means that the demand for public services in health, education is a bit high. Like they depend on public services that government is offering. So in our study that we did, which was just looking at the social cost of public debt, and it looks over 30 years, since 1993. So we found that so for every 100 billion borrowed in public debt, so it leads to about 30 billion lost in sectoral, in social service sectors, so health, education, and social protection. Like that's what the amount that is lost in the coming financial year. So it means even in the long run, people will tend to, as people even demand for more services, they are not able to get those services because government is already in a tight space. And it's also very interesting to see that our revenue has been growing. So we are saying revenue has been growing, our economy has been doing a bit well. But why is it then the challenges are still there? So there was one obvious solution that we somehow came up, or we agreed on in that paper. That of course improving governance could eventually lead to somehow positive repercussions at the end of the day. Like there will be some positive, we might be able to see the positive impact of public debt rather than seeing the negative as we are seeing right now. Because remember, these decisions that were made several years ago are the ones which we are feeling right now. It means even if government decides today to improve governance, so for example, to ensure that public are more involved, so reduce cost corruption, and it will in the long run might be able to ensure that it might be able to lead to better use of the resources available on public debt. And also governance seat something around that we cannot be, some of the resources that were borrowed cannot be traced. For example, you might find projects in our communities cannot are stalled or not doing well. But also something that is also very interesting, and this was just in the recent discussion by Debt and Privatization Committee around commitments. So government is being a lot of commitments, probably based on projects or loans that have been borrowed and have not been utilized. So you tend to find that, so you have to pay these commitments in billions. So it meaning that we are losing in double. Like you are losing now, and like you are double losing the resources that you are borrowing, and you have not been able to utilize those resources. So even ensuring that governance are well scrutinized and ensure that they are in place. It means those kind of leakages will not happen. Then it means it will be able to improve. But also when you look at the current framework that has been put in by government, then to realize they are talking about, for example, zero-based budgeting. It's there, but in most cases it's only there in paper, which means it has not been actualized so that it can be able to ensure that even sectors, let's say health, education, are able to get the consumerate resources that they require. But also remember, education, health are sometimes not the major beneficiaries of public debt. Because remember, these are more of recurrent or social service kind of sectors. So it means they are not big on development, they are big more on the social side. Meaning, when you also try to look at that, for example, in education, you will find the last 5 years between that precedes 2023-2024 financial year, you realize only about 5% of debt borrowed went to education. Like, that's a very small small percentage compared to sectors like energy infrastructure, which tend to take the big chunk. But then, at the end of the day, the sector that will suffer most will be the social service sectors because they don't directly benefit. They benefit, but not directly. So it's somewhere on the direct side. But of course, there are many reforms that should come into that. Thank you.
Thanks, Kip. And where can we find the paper if we want to read it in detail?
Yes. So, our paper is published in budgetyhub.org, and also our exhibition booth is just towards the end of this upper side. Then you can also pass there. You also be able to be shown. But just go to budgetyhub.org and you will be able to find that paper. Also follow our pages, social media, is still budgety up on X and LinkedIn. You'll be able to find the paper that we publish. It's not a very long paper. It's a brief paper, so you can read in one sitting. Thank you.
All right, thanks for that, Kip. It's very interesting that of every 100, roughly 100 shillings that we borrow, every time we borrow 100 shillings, 30 shillings goes missing from the three sectors, the health, education, and social protection. That's very interesting. Now, before I hand it over, there's a burning question that I have. Kip, you mentioned something, a word that's very well known in this country, which is corruption. Yesterday, as I was preparing for this session, I read a very interesting research paper, and my question is actually it was a study of 106 countries, and it was looking between 1996 and 2012, and it essentially found that corruption, an increase in corruption, led to an increase in public debt. An increase in corruption led to an increase in public debt. So I was actually curious. I've always wanted to ask about the connection between these two, especially for someone who was that there's a relationship between public debt and corruption. Explain for 10 marks. I was saying you can explain the connection. Yeah.
Now, the connection between corruption and the increase in public debt is obvious. Because government resources are spent in providing services and providing infrastructure, paying salaries and all that. Now, when you are determining the cost, valuing what you need to spend on value, if there is corruption money, you are providing, giving a to someone in exchange for money. Now, if that person has to deliver that service, he has also to earn the cost of corruption on top of it. So that's an obvious linkage between corruption and debt. So that the cost of public services, public programs go up because there is an element of corruption that is involved that increases the costs. The other obvious thing is, of course, when you are budgeting, you are likely to for things that matter to the people. You budget for things that are likely to generate money for you or for whoever is involved in corruption. And that's why some of the key sectors that we are talking about that are critical, that provide critical services like health, education, suffer because a big opportunity for corruption, like, for example, infrastructure. You are putting up a big dam. it is easier to overprice it because the ordinary citizens won't understand it as easily as they will understand, other normal things that they deal with every day. And that's why you see a lot of phantom projects increasing over the years. This one here, the other one there, I don't know what, billions of money being spent on them. But if you audit them in terms of actual value, in terms of what they will provide to the people in value, and also in terms of actual costs, you will find some of them costing 2 times, 3 times. And the biggest problem with that is that actually many of these projects are using borrowed money. So when you're borrowing 50%, what it means is you're actually mortgaging the future, because you are leaving those, because debts are future, money you are taking now to be paid in the future. What does that mean? It is young people like those students there who will be adults then, or who will be paying taxes then. That linkage some countries where there is proper management of public services, you will see costs differ. You go to some neighboring countries that are run very well in terms of managing costs. If you go to Rwanda, for example, where corruption is not taken like a joke, things are taken very seriously. You will find similar services costing less there, or costing even half than they would cost here. Why? Because of that element of corruption. And so this is the danger, because you are spending resources that will be generated by other people who are, some are not even born. And therefore, it is actually stealing the future of those people who are yet to be born, and the young people who are yet to participate in the economic life of the country. So it is it's something that has to be addressed in very, very serious terms. And as I was saying, if oversight institutions are captured, they are the ones running those businesses. They are the ones being given those jobs to go and do. You are a member of parliament, you are a tender, you are a contractor, a road contractor. How then can you guarantee that that road will be done properly? If you are the one oversighting the spending of the money, and you are also the one who is doing the job. So you can see the obvious relationship between corruption and the spiraling of public debt. One of the recent things that has taken place, for example, is the issue of using the fuel levy fund to borrow money. Now, this money is meant to maintain roads, to build roads. Now, because you want to make many roads or repair many, you take that money, instead of directly, you go and borrow with it. From the information we have, is that the fuel levy that will be generated between now and 2032 won't be spent in servicing loans that have been borrowed. So this is the stealing of the future that I'm talking about. And it is something that must concern the citizens. Citizens must rise up and realize they are the ones who put government in place. They are the ones also who must make the government to account. And they are the ones also who remove governments. They should not put government and then sit back and assume that there is somebody else who is going to do it. Especially in a situation where we have a state capture, where institutions are captured and they become part of the problem, other than providing the solution.
Thank you for that sharp and very considerate answer. So I now hand it over to Yamai to take us through the next part of the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cuba. Because this conversation is a dialogue, we have a mentee that is running. We would love you to scan. I can see already some responses are coming out. For the students, I don't know whether you carried your phones with you, but we are going to be giving you opportunity to ask questions. For the rest of us who have smartphones, kindly you scan through the QR code. It will give you a link. You put the password, and then you are able to respond to the question. We want you to be as engaged as possible, even as we are having this conversation. So in the next round of question, we will be coming back to just go through what we are getting from the audience, and also get to hear from our future, the students that we have in the house. We've had amazing conversation from our panelists, but how much are we talking about here in terms of debt stock? As of 2025, as of 2025 June, the debt stock had reached to 11.45 trillion. And the projection for this year is that the debt is likely to reach 14 trillion. And I love that the panelists have been able to show the relationship between the rising public debt, the cost of servicing the debt, and what that means to the basic services that all of us access. One of the things in the government fiscal consolidation plan that the government is undertaking, that of expanding revenue mobilization, but also working towards reducing the budget deficit. And Wangeshi explained to us what a budget deficit is all about. When the government is spending more than they are collecting in terms of revenue, then that creates a deficit, then has to be met through borrowing. According to the statistics that we have in the recent paper from medium-term debt management strategy, we were able to see that most of our debt is foreign currency denominated, meaning that we borrow in foreign currency, and that means when we are repaying, we also have to repay in foreign currency. And that is up to 47%, because 47% is the total external debt and 53% is the domestic debt. And a study that we did showed that as of 2018, the transfers that go to the county governments reduced compared to the costs that the government is utilizing to, on debt interest. And we saw the projection for the incoming financial year 2026-2027 that the government is going to utilize up to 1.3 trillion towards debt-related costs and obligations. Honorable Peter Monya, you have worked closely with the counties. And one of the challenges that we are seeing in the county government as wananchi wako mashinani, watu nasema hivyo, wananchi wako kwenye county government. And one of the challenges that we have seen is, even as the revenue is growing, because the statistics show that revenue, that is tax revenue, grew by an average of 10% in the last 10 years. But the resources that are coming to the county keep on, reducing in terms of the equitable share. What would be your recommendations in terms of sustaining devolution and financing the essential services in the county governments?
Yes, indeed. You have the specific statistics in terms of reduction, but it is obvious that the revenue growth that has been taking place has not been reflecting in terms of revenue. Even in terms of the revenues going to counties, even though the share of revenue has been increasing. And the share of revenue in law is basically the resources that are collected by the government in terms of taxes are supposed to be shared between the two levels of government. The revenue that is directly collected, not revenue, for example, that is collected by parastatus, which is meant for sustainability, is the revenue that is directly collected in terms of taxes. It's supposed to be shared, and there's a formula in terms of sharing where 15% minimum is supposed to go to the counties. 15% of the revenue collected in that year. Now, the biggest challenge with this, the reasons why it keeps increasing, but not consummary to what is going into the counties. One of the reasons, obviously, is when the debt increases, when you keep increasing the debt, you are reducing the share of revenue because you are supposed to provide for the debt before you determine what you are sharing. So every time more money is borrowed at the national level, it is obvious that the county revenue will go down because you are supposed to provide for debt servicing, and then you are supposed to provide for pensions and salaries, largely pensions, before you determine the share of revenue. So that's one factor. The other factor, of course, is that the national institutions that are supposed to ensure that counties get equitable share that they are supposed to get do not do their job, and sometimes they are in cahoots with the national government to deny counties the resources. And this largely, the responsibility largely lies with the Senate. It is the Senate that represents county interests at the national level, and when you are negotiating the formula for sharing revenue, every financial year, it is the Senate that is supposed to ensure. Because it can't start without Senate. It will originate from National Assembly or originate from the Senate, but eventually both houses have to agree in terms of which money is going to the county. So when you see money going down, what it means is the foremost institution that is mandated to support the counties in terms of ensuring the equitable share goes down there is not doing its job. And
Thank you.
Your guess is as good as mine in terms of why that is not happening.
Thank
of
you.
course, the other
Honorable
point, just to finish, is that
kindly,
the counties themselves, as institutions, are supposed to lobby. They have a committee that is supposed to work. There is a summit that is supposed to sit to work with the national government to ensure they get, which is also not working at this moment.
I will be coming back to you, regarding the issue of oversight. Asena, working with the community, when you hear that most of the resources are going towards debt servicing and more so the interest, as a community person, what concerns do you have?
Thank you so much for that question. What happens and what should be noted is that these statistics and numbers and budget, we need to realize that there are lives behind those numbers. There are lives of persons with disability. There are lives of women. There are lives of youth. There are lives of children. There are lives of the elderly. And therefore, when these numbers come, when these documents come, they need to speak to the household level. They need to speak to the livelihood at the household level. They need to offer services. You cannot set a debt repayment as mandatory and you forget there is a child somewhere who would want to access an ECD which requires special needs attention. And that ECD must be functional with the teachers. You cannot set a debt repayment aside, which is mandatory, and you are forgetting that. There is a person with disability or a youth with disability who wants to access college. The college doesn't have a special needs interest teacher. We cannot allow that. If we want to improve the lives at the household, budgets must speak to the household level. Budgets must speak to people. There is a decision maker somewhere who was holding cabinet secretaries accountable by telling them, you are not showing the public what you are doing. The public does not want to see. They want to feel. They want to touch. They don't want to be shown, listen, this is what the government is doing. No, we want to feel, we want to touch, we want to breathe the warmth of what budgets are doing for us.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Asena. Thank you so much, Asena. My next question will be to Kip Koril. You spoke about zero-based budgeting as one of the approaches the government is undertaking as part of the reforms. We have also seen that part of the things that the government has introduced, especially this year, in the budget policy statement is introducing National Infrastructure Fund. I think all public participation was taking place in the previous weeks. And also, creation of Sovereign Wealth Fund and other reforms that are related to state-owned enterprises. With these reforms coming in place, do you see it as an opportunity for additional revenue for the government? And what would the government do to ensure there's transparency and accountability around those public financing instruments?
Thank you.
In 1 minute.
Yes. So I would start with of course, the way what the issues of debt has been resolving. When you look at the last years, it has been more on transparency. Now it's taking a different shape. And also when you look at what Nyamai have just spoke about on infrastructure fund and whether it will improve the situation. So in my view, I feel government is trying to take a shortcut. And the ideal situation, of course, would be first to reflect on the challenges that, of course, we are facing as a country, especially on that, and not to kind of just do like a shortcut, which in the long run, it might not address the debt issues. And of course, remember also this connects also to the livelihoods, which has also been mentioned. And a very good example is when we look at the SGR, which the first phase from Mombasa to Nairobi. We have been seeing that, and these are reports that are also available in the Parliament website. So we have been seeing that the operational cost is even higher than the return. Like there is nothing that we are getting as a result of that. Then it means also we are paying for the debt that we are not getting. Like there is no return on investment on that, which is still going to affect the sectors. So government, of course, should, first, of course, the ideal position is to ensure that there are no shortcuts. But we are saying that, of course, there have been good level of transparency, that there have been, over the last few years, transparency has been improving, which, especially on that, which is good. But the other side of accountability is an area that we really need to focus, even as citizens. Because remember, Kenya's budget cycle offers various opportunities for us to engage. It means, even as citizens, we really need to get into those spaces and be able to question, ask all those things, all the decisions that government is trying to make, whether they are taking in short term or in long term, because those decisions will eventually affect us in the long run. Even the decisions that are being made around domestic debt and the focus. Remember, we usually say that the majority of domestic debt is short. So meaning when in the next few years, we might not be out of the situation that we are in right now if we don't take care of on that situation. And of course, zero-based budgeting could be a game changer if well implemented, not just being mentioned in the reports, because it does not yield any results. And when you see sectors, it's still incremental, like the budget for health or infrastructure is still going up, not probably being done the way it should be done in that line where they are saying that we need to really do a zero-based budgeting where they justify the projects that probably are not necessary to be done right now, probably should wait first for it so that we are able to get the services and all that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kip Koril. Anchi, I'll be coming to you, but before that, allow me to acknowledge the presence of former CJ Maraga. Karibu sana. We are honored to have you in our conversation. This is where we are talking about financing Kenya's future. So you just came at the right time. Thank you. So just reflecting on back to my panel, just reflecting on the same question that Kip Koril has spoken about. I know TISA has been very vocal around social accountability. And also, going back to the study, the people's audit that you did, one of the things that is coming out clearly is that as the public debt servicing cost is increasing, we are also seeing reduction in the disposable income in the pockets of the people. Especially in Kenya, where there is a lot of borrowing domestically that is taking almost 80%. Where does that leave businesses? If a young person who runs businesses and I want to access loan and I'm competing against the government, where does that leave small businesses that are run by young people and women?
Yeah, thank you. So just building on what my fellow panelists has talked about, I know as young people, we are the majority in this population, just so you know. And I like that we have heard about, we talk about intergenerational injustice. Because like we've heard, we are committing revenue we will be collecting in years to come to pay for debts we are taking now or that were taken way back. So I want you as a young people seated there, 13, 14, 15, think about, we are already budgeting for your taxes. For debts we took maybe 5 years ago, 2 years of debts we are going to take today. So if anything, you need to be very keen on that. And that is where the social accountability issue comes about, that we need to be involved as citizens. We need to be engaged as citizens in these decisions. And part of what we recommend in our paper, what is supposed to happen, of course, there are so many issues. We've talked about corruption, we've talked about the misuse of the funds. But one of the things that we have recommended is, I remember we said borrowing is not the issue. The issue is how we use the borrowed funds. So let us start from, can we use the borrowed funds in the right way? What are we using this debt for? Are they benefiting us? We've heard about thinking about the people. We need to put people in mind when we are budgeting, when we are borrowing. And so one of them is putting the money into good use. The next one is involving the citizen. And how do we involve the citizen? One, we have to provide that information. That information needs to be available. It needs to be, the government needs to be very transparent. At the moment, we have details missing of, how much have we borrowed, what are the interest rates, what are the conditions. Remember, even for you who go to Shylocks, you have terms. So some loan is attached to your title deed. Some I see people coming to your homes to, take your household items. What are the terms of these loans? So we have that information missing. And another thing we need to do is, can we have a true picture of our debt situation? I think we need to agree that we are in a debt crisis at the moment, and that will be our starting point. We first have to admit that we have a problem. We have a debt problem, but how big is this problem? Because remember we are talking about external debt, about domestic debt, but some other, liabilities are also debt and are not factored in. When we talk about the 12-point-something trillion, a lot of other liabilities are missing. So the state-owned enterprises, the money that they owe is not captured in the amount of debt that we are talking about. The pending bills are not captured in the public debt we are talking about. So can we have a true picture of what amount of debt we owe so that we start solving our problem? I think the other issue is we need to have consequences of this misgovernance. So Honorable Munya has spoken about corruption. So why do we let the corrupt people get away with it? So we have seen how corruption is affecting our debt problem. So do we keep closing eyes and pretending? So we have corruption in 2018, they get away with it. 2024, they get away with it. And then we continue saying corruption is a problem. So what are the consequences of this misgovernance? So can we have a framework where we also have that? And I think lastly is to have, we said
the public needs to be involved in that. Of course, it means a lot. We attend public participation forums, we give our input. How much of that is taken up? I hope for those of us who know, IMF has been around for a while. So we know what the IMF Fiscal Consolidation Program has done, the conditionalities and what they have translated into. What are the frameworks of engaging the citizens in some of these processes? So we need to have a citizen-centric processes that have the citizen in mind. And of course, we have quite a number of the recommendations. So when you have the paper, you're going to have the true picture of the reforms that needs to go into it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Angela, for those remarks. Eunice, as I come back to you, and Cuba will be preparing to see what we have from the audience as I finalize with the Eunice. So Eunice, we have seen that in terms of domestic resource mobilization and taxation, we have seen that our revenue from 2012 to 2013 to 2024-2025 financial year, the revenue grew by almost between 10 and 12%. And the government is implementing the medium-term revenue strategy alongside the fiscal consolidation plan, whereby part of the fiscal consolidation is to expand tax bases. What would be the ideal environment for the fiscal framework that we have now? How would it look if we are to lead successful enterprises for the people in the country?
Thank you for that question. One of the things that need to be done is that the taxation systems should be progressive and growth sensitive. Looking at the young entrepreneurs who are setting up businesses, it should be simplified. There should be simplified tax, reduced compliance burdens, and graduated tax structures for the businesses that are starting, because you cannot compare those with businesses that are already established. The second thing that should happen is that government spending should prioritize productive investments. And in our entrepreneurship program at Inuka, we have noticed that the pathway has to be within an ecosystem that brings together commitment and resilience for civic participation. And we need to design fiscal policies that are responsible for managing public debt, and my colleague has spoken about that. This will enable the youth and the community members to grow. I'll share with us a few statistics that can be found at the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. You look there, you're going to find that MSMEs contribute 40% of Kenya's GDP, and they account for over 80% of employment in Kenya. In 2022, the MSMEs created 80% of jobs. That is about 16 million Kenyans, according to the 2023 economic survey. So out of the 600 jobs that were created, 900 new jobs were created by MSMEs. And over 98% of businesses in Kenya are SMEs. So this conversation really needs to see how we ensure that they thrive. The 2024 economic survey reported that the informal sector created 720,900 new jobs in the 2023, accounting for 85% of all new jobs. And these 98% businesses operate in the informal sector, but there is limited access to credit financing. Private sector growth dropped from 13.9% to about 4% in 2024. And this was as a component of inaccessible financing. Then there should be access to affordable capital for youth. We spoke about that. And we all have the Nyota financing that is not even 2 months, and it seems to have stalled somewhere along the way. Then finally, in line with what Angela has said, need for stronger transparency and accountability in public spending, because Kenyans want to see the borrowing work for them in terms of infrastructure, in terms of training opportunities, in terms of a supporting environment to grow the business. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eunice and the panelists. So in this section, we want to turn back to our audience. Our colleagues, Eve and Faithan, will be passing the microphone, but I don't know whether something is on the Menti. Cuba will be taking us through that. Yeah.
All right, thank you. And thank you, panelists, for your amazing discussion. We're just going to try and read some of these, because time is fast spent. I'm going to try and read some of the submissions that have come, and then we'll be able to get one or two from the crowd, especially also from our honorable guests. So the question was, what approval and transparency process should government loans go through before they are signed? So we have some submission here saying citizen participation, full disclosure to the public. Someone is saying parliamentary approval that's backed by some public participation, credible public briefings by the concerned public agencies. Okay. Somebody wants a breakdown budget for every cent. Okay. Public participation, not just parliament. Share the loan agreements and conditionalities. Repayment conditions and interest rates. An intensive public engagement and scrutiny. And this is a long one. Major loans should undergo parliamentary approval and also public participation. Government should know how much they would like to borrow and let that be part of the approved finance bill and appropriation. Very well put. So if you'd like to continue participating, you just go to menti.com, menti.com, and the code is written there as 89691216. So I think at this point we'll probably get some insight from the audience, starting with our former Chief Justice. We've been having a conversation about how to finance Kenya's future. And of course, next year is a very interesting year for this country. It's interesting also because the government that enters into power will have a regime during a period where we'll be renewing our development plan. Right? Vision 2030 ends in 2030. So I'm curious about what aspects of the financing of this development plan could be changed or could be adjusted in your eyes. A question, at least you can sit with it. Yes, there's a gentleman here in the front. We also want to hear from students. Maybe one girl and one boy. And then, yes, okay. So we'll start with you, and then we'll move to you here.
I'm Dungwa Inaina. I'm a fairly known person. I'm here in my capacity as a human rights defender and as well as representing Safina Party. One, I will only speak about 4 things and I will not elaborate. Number 1 is we need to ask ourselves a very basic question. What has been our structural change in our governance system post-2010 Constitution? What has changed? And I know I have engaged this with Governor Munya when he was the governor for Meru for long. Because if you don't answer that question, you keep talking about bloated wage, all those things. I'll tell you this for free. The national government size post-2010 Constitution, rather than shrinking, has actually expanded. So why would the national government be expanding when you have devolution? Yet the core functions like health, are devolved. Why is national government expanding? First question. It's not a question. I'm putting you to to start addressing the structural problem we have. Secondly, budget making. We have not been following the Constitution in our budget making process. This is confirmed by none other than the Controller of Budget. And she has said this before the National Departmental Committee on Constitutional Implementation. And the members admitted. So if you are not following the Constitution in budget making, so why are you complaining about the problem of debt? Because debt is a factor in the budget. Any borrowing you make must be in the budget. But has it been there? It's not. So that's the second point I'm making. The third point I'm making is about devolution. We are 13 years post rollout of devolution, and this year we are going to be 15 years to celebrate the promulgation of 2010 Constitution. 13 years after we rolled out devolution, how far have we implemented devolution? Have we unpackaged, unbundled, constant, and transferred functions? No. Look at health. Health is 98% devolved, but who is controlling health? Right? So if you have not unbundled, costed, and transferred the functions, and how then are you complaining about the cost of running government? Why are you running dubious, wasteful, parallel government systems? Right? So the question here is simple. At what point will you be able to unbundle cost and transfer functions? Resources are two, right? Financial and the human. Why have we not been able to do that? And by the way, we have already expired, and the CJ can tell you this, that already we have expired the timeline that are set in the Constitution in terms of constitutional implementation. The timeline has expired. So we are already operating unconstitutionally in our own constitution. And finally, is a question that I think all of you have debated. What is our economic and fiscal policy post-2010 Constitution? Because the 2010 Constitution fundamentally altered our economic and fiscal policy. But did we change? No, we are still doing the old things. So what have we changed? And finally on debt, as of data from the Institute of Economic Affairs on Wednesday, our debt was 12.32 trillion. And by the way, this debt is what you call the debt on the books, not the debt of the books. Like for instance, we are talking about borrowing now through securitization, is it? That is debt, but it is not on the books. So there's a bigger problem of a debt than what you just talk about. There's a debt on the books and the debts of the books. You need to find out where that is. Santeni.
Thank you for that elaborate answer.
Yes.
Okay, so where are we? Sorry. Oh, yes.
Yes, from here. My name is Luke.
Sorry, Luke, go directly to the question. You have 1 minute, thanks.
Yeah, and I have 3 questions. I will be very brief because I was prepared for this. So I'm a senior comrade. That is my question to the panelists. Number 1, I have the People's Audit here with me, and it's not the first time I'm interacting with it. So my question is about budget, public debt breakdown by administrations. The report highlights economic betrayal and soaring public debt. Can the panelists provide a detailed, itemized breakdown of the specific debt accumulated under the last 3 administrations, clearly outlining how the funds were utilized and which projects received funding? That is the first question. The second one is accountability and recovery mechanisms. Given the claims of bad governance, theft, corruption, and state capture, what concrete legal and financial accountability mechanism does the Okoa Uchumi campaign propose to recover any identified odious debts and all specific individuals or leaders responsible? And the last one is this one: preventing future and sustainable borrowing. Beyond auditing past debt, what specific actionable policy recommendation does this report suggest to prevent future administration and engaging in unsustainable borrowing that can affect the rest of the generation? Thank you.
Thank you. I ask for the next question. You limit it to 144 characters. We'll just hear from the student and then. Yes,
Good morning, everyone. I have a question regarding on the new 2027 elections that are closely or rapidly approaching. My question mainly entails on the empowerment of the citizens and 2023 vision on regarding budgeting and debt that we as the people will pay. My question was, if we as the people, we elect a new government, and mainly we are supporting on our youths now taking over the seats that are going to be in the 2027. We need to empower our youths. One other thing, when they get to the government, the new government that is going to be in 2027, we need to install new plans or new internal systems that will stop corruption, even in a small amount. Because we as the people are suffering, we are paying, we are having high cost of living. We need to install new internal systems on reducing and stopping corruption in Kenya. And one of the other things that I wanted to say, as the country or as the people of Kenya, we need to consider having positions as we are going to, as the youth are registering there, even in the IBC. One person in the panel mainly stated on, are we looking on the leaders that we are voting for? What are they going to do in 2027? Do we know that, are we assured maybe they will do something when they get to the seats? Are we really sure? So when we are choosing for the leaders, kindly focus on our people. Focus on your future and focus on the country Kenya, on its future and taxation.
Thank you. Very well put. Very, very eloquent. So we'll have one more. Is another student? Yes, a young man. We'll have one more and then.
Okay, good morning.
Morning.
Yes, my name is Manuel from Sedo. Yes, and I had a question about the rate of deduction in the next year. My first question is that we as Kenyans, the people who budget the budget of Kenya, they normally budget for those people who are capable of doing it. But in the slums, normally people suffer for getting that earning when to pay the student or a learner in school and find food, and yet you are busy putting the high rate of taxation in school. We are putting the school fees highly, and which led to pupils not to be attentive when they find their parents are really stressed on those issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Very straight to the point. So at this point, we'll take, I think, former CJ. Maraga, and then maybe that'll be the last one. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, moderator, for the opportunity. First of all, I want to express my pleasure to be with you here. Sorry, Honorable Munya, my friend, I missed your presentation and others, but I believe that the spirit of the discussion today is how we can find solutions to our problems. Kenya is a constitutional democracy. A constitutional democracy that is supposed to be governed by the Constitution. The financing of our future, the running of our affairs, all are provided for in our Constitution. And of course, the Public Finance Management Act and other acts that were enacted to implement the Constitution. All that is needed to deal with our finances is fiscal discipline. Fiscal discipline. and this is lacking, and I can't see any time we will really come back and say, yes, we need to have fiscal discipline. The reason is that Kenya, though a constitutional democracy, as I have said, and though we have one of the best constitutions in the world, we have come up with the systems, a system that is extractive. The leaders go to a leadership position with the first priority being personal gain. As a result of that, they will not want to be controlled. They do not want to have fiscal discipline, because that will, inhibit what they want to do so that they can benefit most. So as a result, we have that challenge where anybody coming to government would want to implement, cherry-pick the provisions of the Constitution to implement, with the main objective of being able to loot as much as possible from the system for personal gain. So as a result, we have a constitution which is not being implemented. As the lawyers will tell you, we have a constitution with no constitutionalism. And that is the problem. To be able to deal with the problems we have, including financial discipline, we need to seriously implement our constitution. We cannot do that unless we have accountable leaders. Leaders who are listening to what the people are saying and seeking to implement their views. The Constitution talks a lot about public participation. When you are dealing with the national issues, you have tokenish public participation, sometimes choreographed, to just pick one few people and say, look, you have taken public participation. Then, because of that, you get the leadership, particularly in the executive, that come up with the policies that muscle the institutions that are there in the Constitution. And as a result, accountability is zero. So the projects, the provisions that they implement are provisions, and you will see that is the trend now. You will see that they are seeking to implement provisions, or the policies are geared to having projects. Projects that you are told, look, we are building roads for you. We are building stadiums for you. We are doing this for you. We need all those facilities. But at what cost? If you're going to have a road that is supposed to cost 100 million shillings, for instance, and it is costing 3, 4, 5 times that, and you're being told, look, we are doing this for you, then we should ask ourselves what we're doing. As I said, it is total lack of accountability. It's total lack of accountability. My view is, let's go back to the Constitution. Let's demand that leaders comply with the Constitution. Leaders comply with the letter and the spirit of the Constitution. Yesterday we saw the passing of an act of parliament giving power to a company or a corporation to run a huge sum of money on behalf of the government. With no system of, they have completely sidetracked the constitutional guardrails, where we know it that for any money to be expended, Parliament has to authorize it. For any money to be that is expended, the Auditor General has to, audit it and come up with a report on whether or not the Constitution is being followed. You now get acts which are being passed, which in my view is totally unconstitutional, and you spend a lot of money. So what we need for our financing is simple accountability. And we have an opportunity as a country, we have an opportunity. In my view, 2027 is going to be a critical moment in the history of this country. We don't get it right. We don't get it right, in my view, the consequences are dire. The consequences are dire. We have reached that critical juncture in a nation that you either make or break. The cost of living, the youth unemployment, the restful populace in the country is yearning for a fundamental change. It is not going to be, we are not going to have cosmetic change and say, look, we are changing. Unless we all seriously put our heads together and say, this must not go on, as a country, we are going to break up. We are going to break up. As a leader of the United Green Movement and the presidential flag bearer in 2027, my view is, let's go back to the Constitution. That's why my philosophy is Ukatiba. Ukatiba is constitutionalism. Let's go back to the Constitution. Let us follow the Constitution strictly, and everything will fall into place. When you begin cherry picking and doing things outside the law, we are going to knock. We are going to knock, and the country will be unlivable. The country will be totally into chaos, and we will all lose. Nobody will be spared. Nobody will be spared. Even those who are in power, you are cheating yourselves that because of your power or because of your wealth, you are going to be better off. My view is, let's go back to the Constitution. Let us reset our country. Let us rebuild our economy. And let us reform the systems. Give institutions the power the Constitution has given them, and give them a free hand to run their affairs. Make sure that those institutions are headed by competent people who have the interests of the nation at heart first before anything else. Thank you very much. It was an opportunity to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. That is loud and clear. So we'll just have one last submission for the gentleman at the front, and then we'll take questions. We'll have the panelists respond.
Okay, my name is Daniel Mwangangi. I come from Meru. I am a disability rights advocate, and I'm glad today, as we dialogue here, we have two of the few genuine leaders in this country, that is Munya and Maraga. Fellow Kenyans, as we dialogue here and trying to see where the problem is, let us not forget that Kenya started with betrayal. Right away from independence, it started from betrayal. And even if we talk about corruption and how many times we are going to address corruption, it won't end until we notice that there can be no corruption without betrayal. The people who took the mantle of Kenya took the chains of...
Please proceed. You can continue.
That when you give a autism child a fragile glass, that glass ultimately will be broken. What I mean is that the buck stops with us Kenyans. The kind of leaders that we elect to go and operationalize the Constitution and all the papers that are supposed to give effect to what has been legislated are people who are corrupt and are traitors. And you know what, Kenyans? A traitor is the fullest feared on earth. If we continue with this trajectory, then Kenya will be dead. Although Kenya is not dead, what is required of us is to awaken our people. To awaken our people to what? To awaken our people to redeem this country. This country is lost. Let us redeem this country, Kenyans. And my philosophy is that we redeem this country at what cost? We must be able to go an extra cost so that we redeem our country. It is not a matter of the courts will judge the people who are stealing. It is us to redeem ourselves. Are we genuine Kenyans? As we vote, are we genuine Kenyans?
Please wind up. Thank you. So we take this opportunity to give our panelists a minute or so to respond to the questions that have been raised from the audience. So our panelists, part of the question that has been raised, I think the first person who asked the question was around the current debt stock. We have the session paper. It has information on the debt trends from 2012-2013 financial year to the projected debt for 2026-2027 financial year. You can also find that information on the National Treasury website on the debt report and other documents. So that information is already available. So there was also the question of the question that we got from the students. So I think we are going to be giving the panelists at least a minute, maximum a minute, to just respond to the question that you got. And I'll start with Honorable Peter Munya.
Well, most of the comments made were really comments, not necessarily questions. But I want to agree with whoever is saying that there is some big gap in terms of the implementation of the Constitution, and that is that explains to us that constitutions without quality of leaders that are committed to implementing them are as good as they are in the paper, because it is people who give life to constitutions. All laws are given life by the people. So the responsibility of electing good leaders, as students, one of the students here explained, is really paramount. And it is sad that we have even our students, they themselves coming up that there is a problem with funding of our education. We thought we had reached a stage where the issue of affordability of education was sorted once and for all. That's what we thought. Now we've gone back to pre-Kibaki days, where parents, poor families, can no longer rely on the government to have their children climb the social ladder through an opportunity they are given by education. It's a very sad moment for our country. The other issue that was raised there in terms of the debt that each regime is responsible for. As you have said, it can be found in the statistics. But as one of the speakers said, the issue is not even the amount of money borrowed, it's what that money did. Because you need to look at what was borrowed and then what did it provide. And of course, the law also, we can't also say borrowing is not a problem. There is a limit to what you can borrow because you have to borrow within where you have resources to be able to repay. So it's not like the envelope is elastic forever. There is a limit, and that's why the Constitution puts a ceiling on how much you can borrow. And we are breaking that ceiling, then we go back to the Parliament to approve after the fact. That's what we have been doing. And the Parliament has been in a hurry to do that, to approve whenever that has been done. And as I've said, the breakdown in terms of accountability of our institution, the failure and the capture of our accountability institution is one of the biggest challenges this country has. And that again goes back to the quality and the character of the people we elect. Thank you.
Thank you so much. For me, what I would say is that a great economy must ultimately translate and be felt by the citizen who is at the grassroots. A great economy, its impact should be felt by a student from the urban slums who is right now, he has spoken here and he has said he is feeling the heavy impact that is very negative. A great economy should be positively be felt by the children, it should be felt by the women, it should be felt by the elderly, it should be felt by the persons with disability. And therefore, we need to ensure that our national government is really intentional. The national government currently is not intentional in its implementation of the issues that mwananchi at the grassroots should feel and positively work with and live with it. Therefore, when devolution came, devolution was meant to ensure that services are closer to mwananchi. And I want to take this back to mwananchi. Mwananchi, let's not wait for leaders to decide for us. Let's come up and develop our manifestos. I want to appreciate Honorable Sifuna. The last time we brought our manifesto to you, you followed it up to the grassroots and you called us in the Senate and we presented our issues in the energy sector following that manifesto. Were it not for the manifesto, you would not have recognized us. So if mwananchi can go down, sit down and develop issues, put them in one document, documents for the youth, documents for the persons with disability, documents for the children, bring those issues. And when they are elected, we know we cannot control how they are elected. They come with money, they come with confusion, they come with everything. But once they are elected, let's sit down with our issues and tell them, this is where we want you to implement in the next 100 days. This is what we want you to implement in the next 6 months. This is what we want you to implement in the next 2 years. Therefore, mwananchi, if we sit down and wait for leaders to decide for us, we are doomed. They will continue deciding 40% to go to the debt, and next time they will say 100%. We will be dead by then. Thank you so much.
So I'll just respond to a few things. And I think I'd mentioned some of the recommendations we have given of the reforms that should go into it. But in a nutshell, to just say, and a number of speakers have spoken to it, we have an issue of discipline because we raise a lot of revenue, but we misuse it. We have our priorities wrong. We prioritize the wrong things. If one thing we need to do is reduce on the spending. But what is happening is that we are reducing on spending on the wrong, we prioritize the wrong things. Another thing is we budget, but then we have a number of supplementary budgets coming along. So in between the financial year, we have 2 to 3 supplementary budgets. So even our budgeting is not respected. So we sit down, agree on a position, but along the way, because of our lack of discipline, we keep changing, shifting the goals. Like the issue of the public debt, I think Honorable Munja has mentioned. So when we realized we are about to burst the ceiling, we moved it. We moved a little bit. And then when we realized we are going to burst the ceiling, the new ceiling, we shifted. Now we are working with a percentage of our GDP. And still, so we have a limit of up to 55%. We have by far burst that again. We are up to above 60% of our GDP. So our main issue is discipline, and again on how we spend the money. On the issue of odious debt, it's a conversation that is ongoing. Of course, it needs to be guided by the process. For a debt to be odious, a number of things needs to have been violated. And the reason we need now I think we've spoken about having the right information, having all the information disclosed. What are the terms? What was the process? Was it approved? So we need to have access to all that information so that we are able to have a clear position of saying, so this debt is odious because it was not used for the right purpose, it was not approved, the interest rates went beyond the recommended. So that is why in our recommendation, we first need to have all that information availed so that we are also able to correctly get the right position of our debt. And I think lastly, oversight is a big problem, and we've spoken about it. And it is also informed about the capture. So we have systems in place to give oversight, but over and over we have capture. We have the executive capturing, parliament. We have seen the Auditor General keeps producing very good reports, very good recommendations, but do we have follow-ups? Are those recommendations implemented? So those are the issues we need to address for us to get the solution. But over and above all that, we have mentioned it's a governance issue. So the leaders we put in position, the leaders we elect will in a very big way determine the way we solve our issues. Of course, the debt problem at this point is not something we can wake up one day and say, we stop borrowing. We will have to go. Debt is a very multifaceted issue. We have seen its corruption. There are so many other issues involved. But we also need to ensure that we have the right leaders in office so that they are able to, because we have a very good constitutions. We have, for example, in our public finance, we have Article 201, we have PFM Act, but are they adhered to? So we have it's a very multifaceted problem, but the root of it is governance and the leaders we put in place. And of course, our involvement as citizens. What part do we play? So we can't also sit down and wait for them to do whatever they want. So what are we doing about it? We are in the era of technology, for instance. So we have very many young people in the room. So can we get innovative ways of, for example, we have a lot of information coming from Treasury, from Parliament, so can we get that data consolidated somewhere that can help us also have a true picture of what we are dealing with? So everyone has a role to play, but we really need to be proactive on how we go about it.
Thank you. And I like the question that were asked by the audience. And what came to my mind was, so debt is a problem, but it's not an entire problem. Like, it's not the only problem, because you could hear questions around devolution. And I like that Senator Sevuna is here. Of course, he will be able to respond to some. And the question that was asked around our debt, like what we borrow, how is it what's the life cycle, how it is approved, who approves. I also like that the senator will probably should probably answer such a question. On the devolution and the functions. So about 13 years or over 13 years later, that we're still struggling to see what should go to devolution, like how much should go to fund the counties and the services that are over there. Because if, let's say, at the national level, Ministry of Health was to justify clearly and show this is what we are doing, then it could have also made it clear on how much actually should go to counties, especially in health, which is heavily devolved. But as it's not, still seems not to be happening. But then it also takes me back to what has been done so far, especially on transfer of those functions. Because when you talk about what GTRC, the Governmental Relations Technical Committee has done, both they have been able to unbundle the functions and some have been costed. But recently we realized that that process has been stalled somewhere or it was recalled. So it means our oversight body, like the National Assembly and Senate, has a role there to ensure that that process continue so that it can address and devolution will be able to get their rights here. But then when you see the coming financial year, the 2026-2027 financial year, what is projected? So counties, of course, will just be getting a very small additional allocation, kind of, like about 5 billion. But when you see other sectors, on average, they are getting an addition of around 12% on average, based on based on the current financial year 2025-2026, which shows that there's a bit of unfairness there. That of course, the national government still retains quite a lot of resources despite the devolution, and it leads us to duplication of all those, which means, in my view, Senate and National Assembly should really put in there so that they ensure that they are able to unlock that. And even we have also been asking ourselves, we need to redefine the terms that have actually been used. For example, the shareable revenue. You know, sometimes national government will say, let's first remove, so we remove public debt, we remove consolidated fund service pension, which is fine. But then counties are not actually benefiting from such, meaning that at the end of the day, they will be disadvantaged. And most of the services that are offered are at the county level, which is a challenge. And another question that we have been grappling with.
Sorry, final point.
The parliament listens. So it's a question also that we also need to continue. Although they are giving us spaces to participate, but they listen and actualize what we are raising. Thank you.
Thanks.
There is a comment that has alluded to the caliber of leaders that are elected into office. So for me is to encourage the young people. If all the youth who were on the streets in June 2024 were to get a voter's card and on the day of the elections go and vote in their leader, the concerns we are having that the elections would be rigged would be a different conversation. Let us give them another better problem, as opposed to just making them have an easy way that we don't decide to go and vote. For the other class of people, the middle class, the people in employment, sometimes we say that siasa, mi sipendi mambo ya siasa. I would urge us to get interested in the way we are governed and ask questions. In my naive thinking, sometimes I think we do not need that, because every week the Auditor General, like clockwork, unveils some money that has been stolen. If all this money was recovered and put together, consolidated, I want to believe it may offset a big chunk of the debt that we already owe, so that now when we get back to borrowing, we are borrowing with very specific needs, borrowing as guided by the Constitution, and borrowing with the people having participated in that, such that the borrowing speaks to Wanjiko, Otieno, Omondi, that the roads they are using, the infrastructure, that they don't have to pay to get to treatment in the hospital, that they don't have to pay for education. Right now, just looking at the conversation around grade 10, it is a nightmare for the parents who are currently having students in grade 10 right now because the capitation was removed. We have a big number of students in a small percentage of the schools, while other schools have teachers, but they do not have students. And this is a problem that we have created ourselves because of greed, corruption. Let us call out the leaders. Towards the elections, we usually have the red card campaign. And sometimes we are given our leaders who have been red carded, but because it is someone that is known to us, we don't want to hold them to account. So it is for all of us as members of public of this Kenya. We don't have another Kenya. We need to make sure that Kenya is protected by everyone and ensure that the debt that is borrowed works for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, panelists. We have come to the end of our panel discussion.
Before you close,
Sorry,
I just wanted one last question.
Yeah.
Who in their right senses removes Eduafia? Who in their right senses removes it completely and replaces with nothing? Thank you so much.
All right. That was a good parting shot. So thank you once again to our panelists for being a part of this discussion and helping us understand how to finance Kenya's future, especially given the circumstances we find ourselves in. So we'd like to move to another part of the session where we'll be inviting one of our honorable guests here to say a few words. But before that, we'd like to take a few pictures with the panel. And we have some gifts for you for coming to share your insights. You see the sun has even come out. We are grateful. So we'll do that quickly, and then we'll get into the next part. And thank you, the crowd here, for being a part of the discussions and for your input and your questions. It's much appreciated. All right, can we have a round of applause for the panelists?